Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something absolutely fascinating, the profound gap between reality itself and the tools we actually use to understand it. We're diving headfirst into the mind-bending, translogical ideas from the philosophical text, The Book That Is Not. And honestly, this is the kind of journey that's going to make you completely rethink the words you use and the very thoughts you have.
So let's jump right into the deep end with this wildly paradoxical quote from the text, "What remains when the remainder has been remaindered?" It's such a brilliant little riddle, right? It immediately challenges us to step outside our normal, everyday systems of thought. It really forces us to ask, when you strip away absolutely all of our labels, our categories, our basic assumptions, what is actually left over?
Have you ever experienced a moment so overwhelmingly beautiful or maybe so tragic that you literally couldn't find the words for it? Well, this text argues that this isn't just a failure of your personal vocabulary. Not at all. It's actually a fundamental gap between the universe itself and the tools we rely on every single day to try and capture it.
To really get this, let's look at our first major concept, the map and the territory, and specifically the cartographer's paradox.
Think about how we try and ultimately fail to fully capture reality. It comes down to the epistemological gap between a map and the actual territory. On one hand, you have the map. This is our human knowledge. It's a representation. It's neatly categorized and highly useful. But on the other hand, you have the territory itself, which is actual reality. Reality is completely undifferentiated. It's continuous, and it's overwhelmingly excessive. The map is just a translation made of knowledge stuff, while the territory is the inexhaustibly generous reality itself. They're fundamentally different materials.
To really grasp this, the text presents this gorgeous fable about a cartographer. She wants to make a map so perfect that it omits absolutely nothing. So she maps every single inlet, every tree root, every cloud pattern. Decades pass, and eventually the map grows to the exact size of the country itself. It covers the territory perfectly, one-to-one. But think about it. At that exact moment, it becomes completely useless for navigation. You can't exactly fold up a country-sized piece of paper and shove it in your glove box, right? This fable brilliantly proves that perfect knowledge and perfect ignorance are actually the exact same state.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that a map achieves perfect accuracy only by completely destroying the gap between representation and reality. And paradoxically, by destroying that gap, it completely destroys its own usefulness as a map. Our smaller, imperfect maps, like our science, our language, our daily categories, they're useful precisely because they leave things out.
Now that we have a handle on the map, let's shift metaphors for Section 2, the aperture of consciousness, and how we control the light.
In photography, you probably know that an aperture is a controlled opening that dictates exactly how much light hits the lens. While the text makes this stunning claim that human consciousness itself functions exactly like an aperture. If an aperture opens too wide, you get this overexposed wash of white, meaning admitting too much reality just creates an undifferentiated blur. But if it's too narrow, you get empty darkness. So our consciousness is actually a highly specific calibration of exactly how much reality to exclude.
And what's wild is how the very shape of our consciousness changes our entire world. Imagine you have a circular aperture. You're going to admit a circular shape of reality. But if you have a triangular aperture, you admit a triangular shape. The light outside, the actual reality, is totally identical. But the different shapes of the opening dictate entirely different geometries of experience. We kind of just assume all consciousness converges on a single truth. But what if our specific human aperture is literally just one geometric shape among infinite others?
This is a pretty heavy realization. It means our very existence as a self relies heavily on exclusion. We have to perpetually block out the vast, vast majority of reality just to be able to perceive any tiny sliver of it. To be a self is, by definition, to draw a boundary.
This natural limitation leads us directly into Section 3, the plaster cast of knowledge, or as I like to think of it, the museum of failed instruments.
Think about how we actually build human knowledge. Imagine digging a hole in the earth and pouring plaster into it. When that plaster dries, you pull it out. You get this perfect, solid replica of the hole's shape. But the catch is, it's made of plaster, not earth. That material difference is the unbridgeable gap between reality and knowledge. Our knowledge fits perfectly into the contours of reality, for sure, but it is made of concepts, words, and numbers. It is not made of the raw stuff of the universe.
To further illustrate how our tools failed to capture the raw universe, the authors take us on this mind-bending tour of the Museum of Failed Instruments. It's a place where bizarre objects attempt to measure the completely unmeasurable. Picture a compass pointing everywhere all at once, or a clock with no hands that still keeps perfect time, a mirror that reflects the whole room but entirely deletes the observer, or a book that changes its text based on the reader's gravity and blood chemistry. They measure the world by failing in uniquely beautiful ways.
And I absolutely love this part. These failures aren't portrayed as problems we need to fix. Instead, they act like a photographic negative. They highlight a uniquely shaped residue, mapping out the exact contours of what our human knowledge just cannot catch. It beautifully highlights the profound indifference of the infinite ocean of reality to our tiny human fishing nets.
We see this struggle to capture reality most clearly in how we speak, since language is our primary map. And this prompts a deeply poetic question from the text. What exists before our words get in the way? What actually comes out of a mouth that is not language?
To answer that, let's move to Section 4, the grammar of division and the idea of the artificial wound. We really have to deconstruct something we use completely mindlessly every single day. The text argues that our standard subject-verb-object grammar acts like an artificial wound. Take a super simple sentence like, "The cat sat on the mat." In actual reality, the cat that's sitting in the mat are one continuous, unbroken event, but our grammar violently cuts up this undivided reality into separate interactive pieces just so our human brains can comprehend it. We separate the doer, the action, and the receiver, literally creating gaps that did not exist before we spoke.
The text just beautifully embraces this paradox. Yes, every sentence is technically a lie because it forces a false division onto an undivided world. But it is also the absolute best we can do. It is the only tool we have to navigate our lives, to build our societies, and, to communicate our love. It is a necessary fiction.
The authors ground this really abstract idea in this recurring, almost mystical motif. They describe an unnamed woman at the edge of an unrecorded city. And when she opens her mouth, she doesn't speak broken grammar. Instead, she releases the chord of the real. It's this sound that represents pure, undivided territory recognizing itself. It's a sound that joins things together without erasing their uniqueness, exactly like individual notes making up a single, beautiful chord.
Okay, let's pull all of these threads together in our final section, Terra Residua and what ultimately remains.
So, what exactly is Terra Residua? Well, it's the answer to our opening riddle. It is what remains when the remainder has been remaindered. But don't get the wrong idea. It isn't some empty void or a dark, nihilistic nothingness. It is the ultimate, untranslatable reality that hums quietly beneath our maps, beneath our ticking clocks, and beneath our divided sentences. It is the raw, vibrating ground of being.
The core ethos to the whole book is beautifully captured right here. The failure of our maps, our instruments, and our language isn't a reason to despair at all. It isn't nihilism. It is actually a joyous celebration. Our tools fail simply because reality's generosity is totally inexhaustible. It overflows every single conceptual container we could ever possibly build to hold it.
So, if you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this. The gap between our minds and the universe is not a bug, it is the feature. Our inability to perfectly capture the universe is exactly what fuels our awe, our wonder, our art, and our very existence as conscious, desiring beings. If the map were perfect, the journey would literally be over.
As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. The next time your words fail to capture a beautiful sunset or maybe a moment of profound love, will you fight that failure? Or will you let the conceptual container break, let the wine spill over the edges, and simply celebrate the gorgeous excess of reality? Thanks so much for exploring the territory with me today.